Okay, so today the title of my message is The Mechanics of Joy. And starting today and throughout 2026, I'm going to be creating and teaching a new series at TiVo called The Being of Happiness. Okay, because being happy is going to be one of the key focuses for TiVo next year. And so one of my goals will be to help everyone here get back on track to feeling more like ourselves, and more like the energy that we want to have with building our lives. Okay, so sounds good, right? You know, I find that lately, right, the busyness of life, right, and the chaos of the world and readjusting back to normal, right, has taken a lot out of a lot of us. And it's not easy to get things going now that we're wrapping up 2025 and going into 2026, okay? So if you are familiar with how I like to speak and enjoy how TiVo likes to handle faith and science and research, then listen, this is the series you don't want to miss for next year. Because I'm going to break down some of the latest studies on happiness. I'm going to teach you how to differentiate temporary happiness from lasting joy. And every message is going to have takeaways and an application section that you can immediately put into practice and immediately do what you are learning in church, okay? So it is going to be great. I'm going to do this once every 1 to 2 months so that by the end of the year, each of you here is going to have at least 5 to maybe 6, 7 changes put in place in your life, okay? So how many of you know, right, if you make one change every 2 months, that is going to snowball into a significant change for your life, right? And if you're doing it together with friends, even better, right? Because the results are going to be better, you are going to be more motivated. So turn to your neighbor, tell them you got to be here for this. Okay, so with the message today, the title is The Mechanics of Joy. Now, Christmas is the one holiday of all religious holidays that can take on so many different meanings to different people. Well, first of all, right, Christmas nowadays doesn't really ever fully belong to Christians, am I correct? You know, when it's Deepavali, you know it's for our Hindu friends. When it's Hari Raya, you know it's for our Muslim friends. You know, when it's Vesak Day, you know it's our Buddhist friends. Easter, okay, you know for sure it's for Christians, or sometimes the Easter Bunny. Okay, but Christmas is a strange one. Christmas tends to belong to everyone. Right? All the shopping malls at Orchard Road and City Hall are lit up. Whether you are Christian or not, chances are pretty high. You've either got a Christmas tree up in your home, or you're headed out this season to go party with friends, right? Or you are flying overseas for holiday. Why? To experience Christmas in another country. So add to that, right? Christmas falls always at the end of the year. The time of the year when workplaces wrap up the year. The time of the year where we slow our lives down to recover from the year that just flew by. The time of the year where we start preparing for the year ahead. So Christmas, right, is this very interesting season of our lives that can take on so many meanings and purposes other than just being a religious holiday for us Christians. Which, in actual fact, is not a bad thing. Because that's actually the spirit of what Jesus being born was all about. So listen, right, if you're a Christian visiting for another church, listen, don't need to be uptight about the Christmas holiday. Okay, don't need to be defensive and say, we must bring back the real Christmas. It is not fair that so many people culturally appropriate our holiday. Because listen, the gift of Jesus being born was never meant to be just for Christians. The joy and peace that Jesus represents was a gift that was meant for everyone in the whole world. So let's start by reading today, right, Luke chapter 2, which is one of the only 2 accounts of Jesus' birth. So our Bible has 4 Gospels, each with a different version and a different perspective of Jesus' life because it was written to different audiences. But of the 4 Gospels, right, only 2 have accounts of Jesus' birth. And one of them is this that we're about to read. Luke chapter 2, verse 1, it says that, at the time, the Roman Emperor Augustus declared that a census should be taken throughout the Roman Empire. So if you want to know what a census is, basically you got to go and register your name in a particular place, okay, to let people know that you are from there. So this was the first census taken when Quirinius was governor of Syria. And all the Jews returned to their own ancestral towns to register for this. And because Joseph, the father of Jesus, was a descendant of King David, he had to go to Bethlehem in Judea, David's ancient home. He traveled there from the village of Nazareth in Galilee. He took with him Mary, to whom he was engaged, who was now expecting a child. The Son of God, out of wedlock, okay? 6, while they were there, the time came for her baby to be born. She gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him snugly in strips of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no lodging available for them. Now, if you've been around, out and about, and seen decorations of Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus under an open-air wooden hut, okay, throw that picture out of your head right now, okay? Because of all the possible historical recreations, this is the most inaccurate you could ever see. Okay? Because it was more likely that they were actually staying in the first story of a Jewish home. Which, for Jewish homes back then, right, it would usually it'd be a 2-story situation, okay? It would be a 2-story house or a house that's built on top of a cave, because families would all stay in the upper level, along with a guest room and a common living area, and at the bottom would be where all the animals would stay. Okay, level 1 in the cave or in level 1, okay? So that is the more accurate idea of where they might have been staying, okay? We do know, however, from the text that there wasn't enough room even in the guest room. Okay, maybe because so many people and relatives were coming in for this census that there wasn't any space. Okay, but also, if you think about it, maybe because Mary was having a child out of marriage, right? They put her in the stable instead of the guest room. Okay, interesting thought, huh? Okay, let me go on with this story. Verse 8, the shepherds and the angels. Now that night, there were shepherds staying in the fields nearby, guarding their flocks of sheep. Suddenly, the angel of the Lord appeared among them, and the radiance of the Lord's glory surrounded them, and they were terrified. But the angel reassured them, "Don't be afraid. I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people." Not all Christians, all people. The Savior, yes, the Messiah, the Lord, has been born today in Bethlehem, the city of David, and you will recognize him by this sign. You will find a baby wrapped snugly in strips of cloth lying in a manger. Verse 13, suddenly the angel was joined by a vast host of others, the armies of heaven, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and peace on earth to those whom God is pleased." Okay, wow, what a mouthful. Okay, so 2025 has been a very mixed year, am I correct? I think most of us assumed back in 2024 that 2025 would be a good year. Couldn't get any worse, right? But it turned out it could get worse, and so 2025 was a really mixed year. Now, I will say a few of us here are definitely doing well and feeling good, yeah. Especially if work has been stable, school has been predictable, or something in your life has progressed in a meaningful and exciting way. You know, maybe you settled into a new job, maybe you are getting the hang of university, maybe you got attached or got married or had a baby. If there has been stability and predictability in your life, plus a little bit of change and exciting change, then you're probably ending 2025 feeling pretty good, somewhat hopeful. On the other hand, there'll be some of us here who haven't felt a lot of progress this year, or are still in the middle of change and transition, or recovering from some sort of challenges that you faced in 2025. And so even without knowing the specifics, I can imagine that for you here today, you're probably one of those people that are not feeling the same level of excitement and capacity as your hopeful friends are feeling. Am I correct? You see, everyone ends and starts the year very differently. You know, we rarely ever begin on the same footing. We're rarely ever 100% on the same page, or in terms of our circumstances or the feelings that we have. And this year, especially so. But what I do want to say is that what the Bible has to teach about joy, thankfully, is pretty timeless. It's able to see us through whether we are in a good place or bad place at the end of this year. You know, the principles of what it has to say still applies to all of us. In fact, that's how you know something is a principle. That's how you know something is true, right? You know when the principle can apply to all of us. If it works only for some of us, then it's not really a principle, correct? So on top of that, you know, I believe Jesus is very living and very infinite. And he always has something very personal and very customized to say to each and every single one of us. Don't you ever say personal? Say customize. And so I believe today, as I teach you timeless principles, you're also going to find something personal that is just for you, that speaks just to your situation, and that you can carry forward into 2026. Okay, so ready for the lessons here? So first lesson of Christmas today, joy is something that is independent of our feelings and circumstances. First lesson today, joy is independent of our feelings and circumstances. Whether those feelings and circumstances are positive, whether they are negative. So for those of us here who are feeling good, I'm very happy for you. It's a wonderful thing to be feeling good when the feeling of happiness and hope comes easy. But just remember this, that even when you are feeling good, God wants us to have something deeper, something more long-lasting, something more stable on the inside of us. And for those of us who are not feeling great, listen, here's the good news. You should feel blessed anyway, and know that it is possible for 2026 to have more joy even if you don't feel it right now. Because what God tells us about joy is that joy is something deeper. It is a state of being that we're supposed to have no matter what sort of year it has been for each of us. You see, one of the things we don't often talk about when it comes to Christmas is what challenging circumstances Jesus was actually born in. I mean, sure, some preachers will talk about how, he was running and he was like a refugee from place to place. He went through so many challenges. But the punchline is always, so he understands and he endured suffering so that you don't have to suffer as much, right? And the whole point is to get you to accept Jesus into your heart, which I'm also trying to do today. Okay? Now, it's true and sort of and maybe, but also not quite. The story of Jesus' birth has never been about celebrating an end to our suffering. That once you ask Jesus into your heart, everything in your life is going to go okay. In fact, the point of the Christmas story is that there is joy and hope to be had even in the middle of our suffering. The timing surrounding Jesus' birth were really far from ideal. God's people had become a conquered nation, and they were being occupied by the Roman Empire. And the occupation had gone on for so long, more than 60 years now, that most of Israel had given up ever being free from the grasp of the Roman Empire. In fact, that was why at some point, right, Joseph had to travel all the way to Bethlehem for this census. The Roman Empire wanted all the Jews to be recorded, especially those who came from royal lineage, right? Because they wanted to control the people. They wanted to make sure that there was no uprising. And it had gone on for so long that many of the rich Jewish leaders had become corrupt, and they were actually helping the Romans exploit their own people in exchange for money and power. In fact, if you were to read the Matthew account of Jesus' birth, the Jewish leader Herod, who was actually in charge, was searching for Jesus, hoping to kill him, because he was afraid of Jesus becoming someone that would one day overthrow him. He was worried about this baby one day galvanizing the people to overthrow him. And so that's why when Jesus was born, not long after, he had to run. His whole family had to escape. So it wasn't a good time for Jesus. It wouldn't be the time you say joy to the world. Are you here with me? But never mind just the political climate. Listen, even on the familial and community level, there was no lodging available to Jesus, to his family at the time, likely because he was a child being born out of the institution of marriage. I mean, have you ever thought about it? If they were staying with family, or even if they were staying at a local inn, how could there be too many people in the house that they would be relegated to the stable? Especially a woman who is in the middle of giving birth. Wouldn't she be given the most comfortable, most safe space to have a baby? But yet, Jesus was born into the lower levels. Jesus was born in a stable. They wouldn't even give him a bed. They put him in a manger where animals ate their food from. So, listen to me. joy is not something that occurs in the middle of good circumstances. In fact, in this story, it occurs in the worst of circumstances. And the Gospel of Luke is very specific in how it chooses to tell this Christmas story. Luke writes, while they were there, the time came for her baby to be born. Now, in the original Greek, right, the time came wasn't that she happened to go into labor while they were there. Okay, by chance, by coincidence, whoops, okay? No, actually in the original Greek, it's more like by being there in this particular time, at this particular place, in all its challenging circumstances, this was the exact moment God ordained for Jesus to be born. This was the moment joy was supposed to enter the world, and so it did. Are you here? This was the moment. In the darkest, the most challenging, the most sucky circumstances, this was when joy was supposed to be born. Recently there's been a lot of new studies and research coming out about happiness. And one of the things that really stood out for me reading all this was that I learned having negative emotions doesn't actually ever lower our happiness level. In fact, it merely increases our negative emotions while our happiness level stays exactly the same. Now, do you hear that? This means, right, it is possible for a human being to be happy in the middle of incredibly and increasing negative emotions or challenges. It is possible to be joyful even if your situation doesn't change. But too many of us, right, we spend our lives thinking it's a zero-sum game, it's a seesaw. If happiness goes up, unhappiness goes down. If unhappiness goes up, our joy goes down. But it's not true. It is completely independent of one another. So it is possible for us to tap into joy, even when we don't feel like it. It is possible for us to feel a deep joy, even when our circumstances don't reflect it. And that's one of the things that is beautiful and helpful and also challenging about the birth of Jesus. Right? If I'm feeling a lot of bad emotions, joy is still available to me. If I'm doing really well and feeling a lot of positive emotions, I'm challenged to dig deeper and to chase real joy, not superficial happiness. You see, joy is a state of being that God wants to give to us that's independent of whatever we are going through. That is true joy, when it's not determined by whether things are going well or going badly. Following so far? Okay, so if that's the case, right, then why is true joy so difficult? Well, number two, here's the thing that the story teaches us. Joy is pretty hard to recognize. It is pretty hard to recognize. I repeat. You see, it says there, right, suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared among them, and the radiance of God's glory surrounded them, and the shepherds were terrified. But the angel reassured them, don't be afraid. I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people. The Savior, the Messiah, is born today in Bethlehem, the city of David. And this is how you will recognize him by this sign. You will find a baby wrapped snugly in strips of cloth lying in a manger. Let me repeat that. This is the sign that joy has come. You will find a baby wrapped in strips of cloth lying in a manger. Listen. Joy is hard to recognize because joy rarely looks what it should look like. If I were to ask you to tell me today what makes you happy, some of you would tell me fun, nice clothes, Taylor Swift concert, being accepted by my friends, getting promoted to work, going to Taylor Swift concert twice, being respected and recognized by my peers, being popular. You might think of the feeling you get when somebody likes your post on IG or Facebook or TikTok. You might imagine having a partner, having kids. You might imagine your kids having a certain level of affluence and lifestyle. You might, imagine financial security and freedom. And all of these things are okay. They're not inherently bad. But some of these things are better quality joy bringers than others are. And the pictures that you have in your mind when you imagine these things, often the truth of the matter is this, only some parts contain real joy, but a lot of it actually does not contain real joy. For example, I might tell you today, right? My dream is to go on holiday and backpack through Europe or Mexico with my friends. That's actually a real dream. I did one, haven't done the second one yet, okay? So, and as I tell you that dream, I'm getting excited, imagining the friends who I want to go with, what we will get to do, the food that we will get to eat, the fun that we will get to have, right? But the truth is that picture and the imagination in my head, the part that's real joy to me is actually only two things. Feeling connected with the people I'm with, getting to share a real experience together doesn't have to be expensive. It can be simple, it can be street food, the sitting together and talking and laughing and enjoying an experience, getting lost together, right? You know, and the second thing is being creatively fed. I like to go on holidays not to just show off that I've seen these things, but I want to see things so that it feeds my soul. I can come back and preach better messages. You see, it feeds my values, it feeds my purpose in life. But if we don't know that about ourselves, our values, and our purpose, and what we derive meaning and joy from, you know what happens? We become people that, for example, the moment I have money, I will spend money on a holiday thinking it will bring me joy. If I hit all the tourist spots and take all the photos, I'll feel excited. You know, but then I come back, I feel excited for a while, talk to my friends about it for 1 week, and then second week, I'm back to zero. Right? I feel empty again. So that's usually what happens. Or if I don't have money to go take that dream trip yet, but I see other people taking my dream trip, right? I start to feel more and more negative about my life. Like the joy that I want is out of reach. But actually, I'm chasing the wrong picture. Only some things bring real joy. Not everything in that picture brings joy. You see, our human brain, right, is very easily addicted to this chemical called dopamine. Now, we got a lot of chemicals going around our brain, but the one thing in our brain, dopamine, right, is the chemical that makes us feel good in a moment. It's the chemical of novelty. When we try something new, we get something excited, it's like it lights up our reward center in our brain. We feel great. Okay, it's the chemical that gets released when you have fun. It's the chemical that gets released that makes you feel good when you play a computer game and you win. Or you get a like on your TikTok or Instagram. It's the hit of joy you get when you try a new food or go on holiday. It makes you want to go back and have that new food again. But have you noticed always the second time around isn't as good as the first? Because of dopamine. You see, dopamine is a chemical that is evolutionary necessary for us. It makes us want to eat so that we can get the calories we need to survive. It's the chemical that encourages mating so our species can survive. It's the chemical that encourages exploration because, you know, we get pleasure from exploring new things, but go too far and we end up becoming imperialistic, colonialistic conquerors. Are you here with me? Okay, so all these things were necessary once upon a time for us to survive as cavemen thousands and thousands of years ago. But human beings became an evolved species that needs more than physical stuff to survive. We now need meaningful purpose and connection. So dopamine exists in the part of the brain almost that is like the oldest parts of our brain. It works with the oldest parts of our brain the most. And now all the stuff that is like self-actualization, purpose is all in the newer parts of our brain. Still quite old, hundreds and thousands of years old, but still younger than the caveman part of our brain. Are you here? So the problem is our physical evolution hasn't quite kept up as fast as our spiritual evolution. And on top of that, listen, along that same lines, I want you to think about this. Do you know our brain also has more brain tissue dedicated to recognizing threats and barriers than it does to recognizing opportunities? And the reason for that is very simple. Long ago, when caveman days again, right, a tiger chasing you is way more consequential than a gazelle getting away. Are you following me? It's more important not to get eaten than to eat. Are you here? So our brain has more tissue dedicated to the negative, to make us run when we need to run, survive when we need to survive. And so today, we actually have to work to train ourselves to recognize joy. To train ourselves to see that our lives are surrounded with opportunity, not just negative barriers and limitations. It takes work to be dedicated to pursuing real joy instead of constantly looking at what is going wrong in our lives. So Dr. Emily Ashafani-Smith is an editor at Stanford University's Hoover Institution, and she's also a journalist for the Wall Street Journal. But she wrote a book called The Power of Meaning, Finding Fulfillment in a World Obsessed with Happiness, which was based on the research she did for her PhD thesis. So the basic premise of the book is this, that for those of us who live in developed nations, aka us, okay, we are living in cultures that are obsessed with getting temporary happiness. Things, success, accolades, fun, which she calls temporary happiness. And she notes in a book that even relationships are technically sometimes temporary happiness because they are not happy all the time. So what she found is that if we keep chasing temporary happiness, we're always going to come up empty in life. So what she found through her own research and the research of other scientists was this: despair in life is not caused by a lack of happiness, but a lack of meaning in life, a lack of deeper kinds of happiness. So she found, people who pursued temporary happiness tended to compare more and struggle more with anxiety. But people who pursue more permanent happiness, that is joy that comes from meaning and purpose in life, tended to compare less, were also more resilient, and ended up in the long run doing better at school and at work. Does that sound good? See, wouldn't it be nice to be free of anxiety? Wouldn't it be nice to be more content instead of always chasing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing? But it's not easy, right? Why? Because our caveman brain keeps working against us. We keep exchanging real joy for imitation happiness. We keep focusing on the negative instead of seeing meaning and purpose as available to us right now. See, I find Luke's version of events very fascinating. The angel comes to the shepherds and tells them, good news, great joy, woo! The Messiah, your Savior, has been born, and this is how you will recognize him. He won't be wearing a crown or wrapped in kingly garments or wearing the best new latest sneakers. There won't be a ton of people there to pay homage to him. Heck, even the people in his own family will not be impressed by him and relegate him to a stable. Okay, so what's he saying? Hey guys, shepherds, there won't be all the typical markers of success for you to notice what real joy looks like. In fact, you will notice him by this kind of a sign. A baby wrapped in strips of cloth. Don't even have proper diaper strips of cloth. Lying in a wooden box that animals eat out of. That's real joy. So, again, I want to stress, listen, your real joy is not going to be found in your trophies or your good grades or outdoing your friend, getting a bigger paycheck or rewards or accolades. Now, I have no doubt, and I'll talk about this in the series later on, right? To what extent these things will make us happy. They will make you feel happy to a limited degree. They will make you feel happy for a moment, but they are not what joy, real joy, steady joy, rooted joy is. Because once they disappear, you're back to zero. So what does real joy and lasting joy look like? Well, Ashafani-Smith has 4 pillars, okay? And you'll find some form of this in every social scientist study. Some are 3, some are 4, some are 5, but they kind of all revolve around the same ideas, okay? So the first key she has in her study is belonging. That is connection to a larger community. Being able to forge and, listen to this, sustain relationships. So it's not every relationship that's going to make you happy, it's your ability to sustain long-term relationships. You see, too many of us nowadays, right, more than our parents' generation, we go from relationship to relationship, community to community based on whether something is fun, whether something is exciting, whether something is stimulating, whether something gives us a bigger paycheck. But at the end of the day, right, the ones who actually find deeper joy, they found their studies, across a lot of studies, the ones who find deeper joy are the ones who look for real belonging and learn how to make relationships work. Learn how to find the right people to be around and sustain long-term relationships over a long period of time, even when it gets hard. Are you here? You see, too many of us here, right, the reason why sometimes we feel lonely and joyless is because we have too many dysfunctional relationships in our life. We have too many connections that bring us more loneliness than it brings us joy. You know, are you prioritizing deep belonging? Are you being a good friend in your existing relationships? Are you growing your ability to accept yourself and to accept others, to include yourself and to include others? Are you recognizing what real joy looks like, what real love looks like versus just infatuation and excitement? You know, and are you focused on what is negative in your relationships, you know, or what is superficial in your relationships? Or are you really looking at the stuff that really matters? Belonging. The second key she found is purpose. That means people who were more resilient and happy in life were those who had values that they were working towards and working for. They were working towards stuff for a reason, and they had long-term goals that would give them a sense of accomplishment after they fought for it and overcame. You see, you got to understand, right? Joy comes from living in alignment with your why in life. Why you do what you do. Joy also comes from achieving your goals after being through a period of struggle and overcoming. So don't diss negativity and struggle. It is part of cultivating joy. You got to overcome in order to feel a sense of deep joy and achievement that is more than just a paycheck, more than just a trophy, more than just recognition. You see, you know, this is something I keep trying to tell adults over and over again, young adults over and over again. Work is never just for a paycheck. The paycheck is important, but it's not just for the paycheck. Work is not just for the sake of purchasing fun in exchange for, money in exchange for fun. Work is not an exchange for recognition. Those will keep you happy for a moment, but it will never calm your restless soul. Because human beings, they find over and over again, they need belonging. You know, they need some deeper sense of purpose. So my question to you today is, as you wrap up 2026, what are your values? A good exercise to do is to re-look your values. What are the values that bring you peace that maybe you pushed to the wayside this year because there were too many things in the way, too many distracting stuff? What are the values that give you significance, not just recognition? What is the kind of work that makes you feel this is worthwhile, the hard work is worthwhile? Because so many of us use things like holidays and fun and reward and awards to make ourselves feel better. But then once it's over, the dopamine disappears and we're back to square one. Right? So what is it that you need? Because can I tell you this? This is a thought that I've been having recently, right? Singaporeans right now, we're just chasing holiday after holiday. Wow, more than ever, I think it's the COVID, the revenge of COVID. Right, being stuck on a tiny island. Other countries, I can travel all over the place at least, right? Drive your car, right? But Singapore is stuck, right? So we travel and travel. But if you're not careful, I tell you, Singaporeans are going to get addicted to the dopamine of travel. And my question to many of us is this: can you sustain paying for holiday after holiday in order to feel happy? Or, here's the alternative: would you rather be joyful enough that you can go on holidays but also save some of the money for retirement? Or put aside some of the extra money to give and be generous and to make a difference in somebody else's life who really needs it and get lasting joy from that feeling? You see, I noticed this about temporary happiness. Temporary happiness tends to keep you spending. But real joy will help you to save and help you to be a generous person in life. What do you want for your life? Third key that she had: storytelling. Okay? So storytelling means building meaning through our own personal narrative and reflections, knowing our place in the world. So I'm not going to go too deep into this because it's too long to talk about, but it means instead of constantly telling yourself a story of lack, a story of discontentment, a story of negativity, a story of dissatisfaction, joy is learning how to tell a story of opportunity, potential, lessons learned, and redemption. And reconciliation even. Storytelling. What we tell about a story can determine our experience of our life. Fourth one, lastly, transcendence. Very interesting, okay? That is connection to something bigger than oneself. This could be a higher being, like for us Christians, that's Jesus. It could be a bigger picture. It could be a greater good. So it's very funny, right? More and more studies are coming out reinforcing this, that spirituality is extremely important to the human experience. And I agree with this, I experienced it myself, but also anecdotally around my own friends, right? I started to notice people are increasingly open to things like horoscopes, star signs, spiritual readings, even religion, more and more so. But can I tell you, honestly, all these things, right? Even Christianity can be very superficial if you are using rituals and gimmicks to replace the importance of having a life of faith. Which is in essence being connected to someone or something that's much bigger than just yourself. See, one of the things that I'll talk about in next few sermons is how for all these four things, there's always some sort of compromise or counterfeit version. Some sort of easy temporary fixed version. Some sort of easy superficial imitation. Some sort of idol in our lives. And it will take effort for us to see past what is superficial, to move past what is easy in order to hold on to the real stuff that bring us deep joy in our lives. Listen, the biggest gift you can give yourself from now till 2026 rolls around is to ask yourself, how am I doing in these four areas of my life? What's the superficial version of this that's been distracting me this year? What's the imitation version that I've settled for that actually I shouldn't settle for? What have I been doing that's good and need to keep doing in order to prioritize building real joy and resilience in my life? I mean, how of you would prefer the real thing? Anybody like the fake thing? Anybody like Pepsi over Coke? Okay, number 3. Offended some people who like Pepsi. Okay, number 3. Joy requires training ourselves to respond to what's good. Okay, so the word good news is actually the Greek word evangelion, which is a word that means a good message or joyful news. Historically, in the Roman Empire, this would be a word used, because this is a dead language already, but it was used to describe, it's a word used to describe military victories or happy personal news, both. Okay? Basically, it's good and messenger put together, good news, okay? So we all could do with a little good news in our life, correct? But what is also fascinating about the Christmas story is the shepherd's initial response to this supposed good news of Jesus was quite the opposite of what you would expect. When the angel came and said, good news, they didn't immediately jump for joy, yeah! In fact, their first response, the Bible says, is they were terrified. Okay? The Lord's angel stood before them. The Lord's glory shone around them. So try to imagine this right now in movie glory. Okay, are you hearing me? Ah! And they were terrified. And the angel said to them, don't be afraid. Look, I bring good news to you. Wonderful, joyous news for all people. Now, okay, I know, right? They were probably freaked out. I would probably be freaked out, right? If suddenly light appeared from heaven, and then this weird glowing, I assume it was a glowing angel. The Bible doesn't really say, but suddenly stood right in front of me, right? I would be freaked out, right? And then someone after that, once he's done, wow, another whole army of angels appear and they start singing and you hear like the entire symphony orchestra going. I will be freaked out. Okay, but this is what it triggered in my reflections, right? Just their whole reaction, this whole situation. Right? That human beings, right, for whatever reason, maybe it's life, maybe it's disappointments, maybe it's caution, maybe it's protection, skepticism, jadedness. When joy appears on the scene, we're pretty bad at responding the way we should to what's good. You would wish that we would just immediately go, yes, right? But we don't. Okay? Let's take general news, for example. Never mind glory from heaven and lights flashing, okay? Like a UFO. Listen, just take general news, for example. The moment we get bad news, we immediately, oh man, this sucks. Oh man, that's so sad. Man, I am so angry, right? The more you scroll your Instagram, you wake up and all the bad news. And immediately we go to work and school and we tell them, did you hear about that? Did you read about that? Did you see that on your Instagram feed? Did you hear about this online? Right, human beings, right, we immediately respond. We immediately believe. And whenever we get the chance, we immediately share bad news with other people. And this behavior is not limited to those of us who are gossipy, who are a bit sampa and like to talk. All of us does it. You know, it's shown, it's proven, we're better at believing bad news even if it's fake than believing good news even if it's fake. Right? It's so funny. We're good at believing, reacting, and sharing what's bad, but the same is not true in reverse. The same is not true when it comes to what is good in life. You know, when's the last time you celebrated something good about the news? Something good about Singaporean heroes. Something good about your school. Something good about your friends. Something good about your colleagues. When's the last time you immediately believed something good and shared about it and your response wasn't just, sure not? For real? Right? Do you know that now more and more news outlets know this about our brain and they make use of it to spike engagement when their engagement is low? Because bad news sells. So during the holidays, when November, December breaks and Straits Times and CNA, right, no longer people are scrolling because they're going out partying, hanging out with friends, planning their holiday, right? Then they go, wow, people are not engaging with our news. Bad news, bad news, bad news, bad news. Caution, right? Trigger warning. Are you here with me? Why? Because it spikes engagement. Bad news sells. Bad news makes use of the fact that our brain still has more tissue that responds to negativity than it does to positivity. Bad news travels faster and stays with us longer. But here's the thing, right? You and I don't have to behave like cavemen. We don't have to be slaves to our animal instincts. God made human beings very different. He gave us this evolutionary ability. Now, I'm not saying I believe animals have compassion. I think animals have empathy. I look at my dog's eyes and I know he has empathy. Right? But human beings have this incredible ability to progress. You know, apes stay the same. Dogs stay the same, generally. Most animals stay the same. Or they evolve very slow. But human beings, right, we have this certain consciousness that's very different. We have this ability to make up our mind about who we want to be. We have this ability to go against our animal instinct and choose better ways. Even when our brain and our body cannot catch up with our spirituality. So the shepherds' first reaction was not ideal. They were afraid. Their reaction was like, never see before, never do before. You know, I can't imagine. This is just the way I am. How come this sunny thing is coming out of the blue? Are you here? But I like what they did next. Luke 2:15, it says here, right? When the angels returned to heaven, after all the hoopla, the shepherds suddenly said to each other, let's go right now to Bethlehem and see what's happened. Let's confirm what the Lord has revealed to us. They went quickly and found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a manger. And when they saw this, they reported what they had been told about this child. Everyone around them who heard it was amazed at what the shepherds told them. Then the shepherds returned home, glorifying and praising God for all they had seen and heard. Everything happened just as they had been told. So this is a very interesting paragraph, right? Everyone here know the term confirmation bias? Okay? Usually, colloquially, we use the term confirmation bias in a judgy, negative way, right? On people, we feel doubling down on viewpoints that we think are too illogical or different from our own. Correct? So, for example, if you support Workers' Party, nothing Workers' Party do can be wrong. Your brain will automatically believe, pay attention to news, and confirm that Workers' Party is the best and PAP is always wrong. Am I correct? Conversely, if you support PAP, nothing PAP does is wrong. Everything they do is right, Workers' Party is the wrong one. And then after that, we scold each other during Christmas. Please lah, you are just seeing what you want to see and hearing what you want to hear. Hey, you also lah. Correct? So, did you know, right, confirmation bias is something we all do. Because it's an inherent mechanism in our brain. And not only is it inherent, which means all of us do it, none of us is exempt, it is also actually a necessary mechanism for us to live. Because this confirmation bias, right, helps us humans make fast and efficient decisions when we need to. It's sort of like a shortcut key in our brain. Otherwise, you and I will waste too much time and energy over analyzing every single little decision we make in life. Okay? So it's there for a reason. In fact, this shortcut actually also helps cooperation in community and relationships. It helps us to foster and build connection more easily. So, for example, when we like a particular community or we like a particular group of people or certain friends, our brains will automatically start to look for common ground to confirm our bias of liking that group of people so that we can notice it and believe those ideas more, so that we can bond with the communities we've chosen faster. Right? Last time, especially as cavemen, to survive. It also allows us to quickly distance ourselves from groups that we don't want to be a part of. To be safe. Okay? It's why, right, listen to me, that's why, right, when it comes to falling in love, for example, right, it's why when you first fall in love, your partner can do no wrong. Confirmation bias. Then after we're married and we start to, our eyes are open and we are offended, they can do no right. Are you following? Because at some point, we made up our mind, and the mechanism of confirmation bias helps us to double down on that decision. Now, this mechanism is very, very important. But it's also a double-edged sword if you are not careful. Because once you make up your mind, especially about being unhappy and emo, all the youth here, your brain will keep looking for confirmation to reinforce your unhappiness. Man, life sucks. Man, God and the universe are just against me. Man, my boss and my colleagues don't care about me. Man, my lecturers and schoolmates don't like me, right? And at some point, your brain will start looking for signs to confirm your existing bias. You get a B, you go, see, I'm not smart. See, my lecturer doesn't like me. Someone gets promoted above you, see, my boss is biased. My boss will never reward me. Now, is it sometimes true? Yes, quite possibly. Sometimes, a lot of times, it can be true. But a lot of times, it's actually not. You see, confirmation bias is a necessary mechanism. But oftentimes, it has nothing to do with logic, even though we think we're very logical. Right? That's how we start to get illogical thoughts like, God and the universe is against me. God blesses other people. Other people are lucky, but for me, life is harder. Right? When it kicks in, confirmation bias is very hard to break. The only way to break it is to intentionally slow down and be more thoughtful and change direction. Right? To ask yourself, is what I'm thinking true? What if I were to choose to confirm the positive rather than confirm the negative? You see, that's how powerful this confirmation thing is, You see, to the shepherd's credit, right, their first response was less than ideal. Their first response contradicted their, went along with their usual patterns, right? But after that, suddenly they chose to move in a different direction. They went to confirm what good news had been told to them. It's very interesting. I find it very funny how the Bible uses this, right? I mean, I'm sure they weren't thinking of this when they wrote this. Nobody knew psychology and confirmation bias back then, 2,000 years ago, right? But they went to confirm the good news that was told to them. Let's go right now. Let's confirm what has been said to us. You see, this tells me we have power over our confirmation bias. We can confirm a bias towards good as much as our bias towards the negative. What if you would choose in 2026 that you are going to confirm the good stuff you think versus the bad stuff you think? Will it change your life? Will it change your happiness? Will it change your relationships? Will it change school? Will it change work? Right? You see, I really believe we have more to gain, if not everything to gain, from responding to and believing and confirming what's good and joy-creating compared to constantly nursing and confirming what is joy-robbing. Now, listen, I want to be very balanced, right? But I can never squeeze everything I want to in a sermon, okay? But listen to me, right? Listen, you cannot go through life living in illusions. That means you cannot just cancel all the negative in your life. and the bad in your life. Okay, you cannot cure a difficult situation with toxic positivity. You can't. Right? Because actually being joyful requires being honest with your difficult situations. That yes, sometimes it's really hard. Yes, certain things are stacked against me, but there is some opportunity. Are you following what I'm saying? You know, the way to go about life is not to go, it doesn't exist. Okay? If you do that, you're going to be living an illusion. And sooner or later, the illusion will burst. Are you following? You can't find more joy by sweeping problems under the rug. You can't resolve a relationship problem by sweeping it under the rug. You have to face it. You have to move through it. You have to be honest about it. Because there's no joy or freedom if you are not honest and being truthful, and there's no trust and there's no belonging. At the same time, you need to remember that you can choose to be biased towards what is good. You know, I feel nowadays, right, one of the things holding us back is there's such a strong culture of toxic authenticity. Nowadays. I used to love it in the beginning, you know, just before COVID. Yes, people are finally discovering therapy is good. Self-care is good. You know, being authentic is good. But then now it's reached a point where I go like, wow, everything also must call out. Everything also I must speak my truth with no filter, as though that's the healthiest way of being. Listen, having a filter does not infringe on your authenticity. Having a filter is called being mature, a mature grown-up. Yes? Do you sometimes wish your parents had a filter? Then why you don't have a filter, eh? Are you here? It's so funny, right? Listen, if you think the way to connect, build lasting connection is to always speak with no filter, good luck, you're going to be very lonely in life. It is going to damage you at work, it's going to damage you at school, it's going to damage you with friends. Because not everybody can be confronted all the time. Not everybody can live with people with no filter nonstop. It's very, very hard. Are you here with me? You see, I think so many of us, right, we don't know how to navigate this balance of life, to hold both having joy and negative feelings at the same time. We don't know how to use confirmation bias to our real advantage. And I think that's the reason why so many people stay in a loop of, post-traumatic stress. Let's not call it PTSD, okay? That's too weighty, are you hearing me? But we stay in this post-traumatic, post-hurt stress, and we never move into post-traumatic, post-failure, post-mistake growth. Because we keep, flippantly saying we have PTSD, which is really, honestly, a disservice to people who really have PTSD. Are you here? Most of the time, our PTSD is just stress and unresolved stuff and hurts and conflicts and forgiveness. Are you hearing me? But we keep talking about it like it's something that happens to us. Listen, even if it did happen to you, you still have a choice. You can stay in that stress or you can move on to growth. We can learn to manage our negative reactivity and confirmation bias and turn it to react to good news, to believe good stuff, to look for good stuff, to confirm good stuff. You see, what we choose to pay more attention to and respond to will determine our experience of life. We can choose to respond to what is good for us. Okay, I have so many more things I want to say, but come back and we will listen to that, all right? Last one. Ready? I'm going to land this plane, all right? Number 4, joy is meant to be shared so it can be sustained. Listen, joy is a completely independent state to negative emotions, but it still needs to be fed. The good and bad are not a seesaw in our life. They are not in competition, but both of them can be fed. You can reduce negativity or feed negativity. You can reduce joy or feed joy. Okay? So how do we feed joy? You can feed it, you can strengthen it, you can increase it. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is to share it. Or even better, to teach it. You see, of all the people who is going to grow their joy the most today in this room, it's me. Because when I get up here, despite how I'm feeling, despite how I'm doing, I have no choice, right? I've got to overcome my negativity and speak to you. right? I'm choosing joy over the negative. I'm teaching you how to recognize and respond to joy, and therefore reinforcing my own ability to recognize and respond to joy. You get the summary version in 40 minutes. I got to spend hours and days researching books to learn, listening to podcasts to grow, writing it down, reflecting, distilling, figuring out activity, digesting the joy. And so in sharing this with you, my value system of joy and discipline of joy is strengthened. In sharing this with you and having to help make sure that next year our church stays on track with this value, I'm the one that will benefit the most. You know, people sometimes ask me, right, what's the best way to keep being a Christian or to stay motivated with your personal growth? My answer is become a leader. Pour yourself into other people, and you'll inevitably top up yourself. You know, it's a cliche, but it's so true. If you want more love, give more love. If you want more joy, then start giving joy first. If you want people to be generous and gracious to you, then you be generous and gracious to other people first. Anything that you need right now and want for 2026, start by being the one to start sharing it. You see, the Bible doesn't say, right, when the angels appeared, the shepherd's circumstances changed. Wouldn't that be great? The Bible doesn't even say when Jesus came, immediately the whole world changed. You know, sometimes I get so fed up, and I was fed up myself once upon a time, because I used to say it, right? When people say, you know, if God was really real, there will be no suffering in the world. You know, I go, yeah, I know it's a very ideal thought, but you know, it doesn't really work. You know, can you imagine, right, if the way spirituality works is God shows up and all the problems in the world are settled, and all suffering is gone. I mean, have you ever thought what that would entail for that argument to be true? It would entail God turning you into a robot and taking away your free will. Right? For God to wipe out all suffering, He will have to mind control you. Right? So it's very funny, right? We have all these confirmation bias of like, God's not real, God is bad, God is not good, how can God be good when the world is so messed up? But you got to understand this, that is not the joy and the peace that God talks about when He talks about Jesus in the Bible. In the Bible, joy is slow. Joy takes work. Joy takes human evolution and growth. Joy takes human beings learning how to make peace with one another. In every little relationship, in every little generation, in the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. And that is how humanity comes to a place of joy and peace, when we slowly build it, when we slowly grow it, when we slowly cultivate it. You know, that's why, right, people don't notice this. They always focus, right, on Christmas, on this line where the angel says, I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people. But you know, after that, the whole army of angels appeared, right, and they added a line. They said, peace on earth to those whom God is pleased. Peace on earth to those who live in a way that pleases God. So the good news about Christmas when it comes to joy is that God initiates the process. God comes to us and says, hey, it's okay. You've been living life a certain way. The world is dark in a certain way. You've been perceiving life and joy in a certain way. But here I am to show you that it's different. Yeah. He initiates the process. Right? So same for all of us here. If you've never thought about personal growth in your life, you know, all the young people here, this is the best time for you to start thinking of it. Right? You came here today and guess what? God started you on the path. Started you thinking, maybe, hey, I should prioritize this. Right? If you're sitting here today and you're struggling, you're feeling overwhelmed by all your dark clouds and emo and challenges, listen, Jesus is telling you, hey, there's a way out. I bring you good news. I'm taking the initiative to tell you today there is still real joy available to you despite your negativity. You don't need to repeat the year that just went by. You don't need to be a slave to the patterns and the chaos that's happening in this world. You can cultivate joy right now. You can cultivate deep joy instead of temporary happiness. You see, humanity was stuck in a certain place when Jesus appeared. Right? It wasn't great, but Jesus appeared. The Bible calls it God introduced a great light into the dark world. Okay? So Jesus initiates the starting point. But you must understand the mechanics of how this joy that Jesus introduced works. It isn't instant. It isn't dependent on whether the world is good or bad, or your life is going well or not going well, how much money you're making, how much money you're not. It isn't dependent on how you feel even. It requires you to recognize what's real. It requires you to chase after what's real. It requires you to share what is real, not wait for it to come to you on its own. But if you can take it and master it, then listen, peace will belong to you.